Today we'll be talking about how to complete the oral reading fluency assessment with your students. On your screen you can see the rubric for second grade. If you are a first grade teacher, the rubric is pretty much exactly the same, only the standard numbers will be different. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to remind yourself what the text was. Today we're going to be looking at one called Plants Have Stems. And you'll write the quarter, so it's going to be quarter 2, and this is my first assessment for this quarter. On your screen, you're going to notice across the top the categories that you are going to be assessing in this assessment. So the first one says read grade level text orally with expression on successive readings. Okay, you will notice that this is a standard that you have in second grade. So you are going to be listening specifically for expression. That's why that's in bold there. And that's something that you're just going to listen for, and you're going to give the child a score on a scale of 1 to 4. On the next slide, we'll see the scales 1 through 4, but more or less 3 is grade level. So if your child is reading on grade level, you would give them a 3. You can see here in the sample that this student got a 4 on that particular component. The next one that you see in this column is alertness to punctuation. That's another one that you're just going to be listening for, and you're going to give the child a score based on your observations of how alert that child was to punctuation. It is a 1, 2, 3, 4 score. So in those two categories, this sample, the child got a 4 on expression and a 3 on punctuation, 3 being grade level, 4 being above grade level. The next categories you can see, again, have standards linked to both of those. The first one says, read grade level text orally with appropriate rate. And then the next column says, read grade level text orally with accuracy. For these two columns, you are not going to use your discretion on that. You are actually going to calculate the child's score. And I'm going to show you how to do that and how you calculate it when we get to the next screen. So in just a moment, we will do that together. But you can see that this child, according to the sample, got a 4 for the appropriate rate and got a 4 for the accuracy. Actually, that should be a 3 because the maximum score for accuracy is a 3, and we will see that on the next screen. The final two columns that you see here are a little bit different because you'll notice that there's no scale for that. These are just yes or no questions. And again, you're going to use your discretion to determine the whether you respond yes or no. So the standard says, read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. So following the reading, you are going to ask the student a question. This is very similar to what happens on the M-Class Dibbles assessment. So our students are accustomed to this. So whatever they read, you'll just simply ask them a comprehension question. If they read with enough accuracy and fluency to answer the question and they did comprehend, you'll simply write yes. If they did not, you'll write no. In the final one, it says use context to confirm or self-correct word recognition and understanding rereading as necessary. So we're really focusing on word recognition here. Can they use the context to confirm the words, or are they self-correcting the words? If they're doing either one of those, you would give them a yes. If they're not, they're just breezing through it and they're not recognizing what the words are, you would give them a no. For these two scores right here, this is simply yes or no. It is not going to be factored into the child's grade. You are only going to be using the first 4 columns. So let's look again at what those scales are. So for this column, it is a 1 through 4 score. Over here we have 1 through 4, 1 through 4, and 1 through 3. If you were to add those up, you would see that's 15 points. However, when we enter this in class reach, you are going to take this out of 12 points. And the reason why is because even though on these first 3 columns that you see the scale of 1 through 4, so this one, and this one, even though a student can get a 4, remember that 4 means well above grade level. Our perfect score, what we're really going for, is grade level, and that's represented by a 3. So really a 4 is well above. Think of it as like over 100% or something. So we are really shooting for a 3 in each one of these, and that's why there's 4 columns, 3 points each. We're going to take this out of 12. So is it possible that a student could have 14 points out of 12? Yes, that is possible that a student could have this, and that's okay to enter it in ClassReach that way. Is it possible that a student could have 9 out of 12? Yes, it is. It just depends on how the students score in those various according to those standards. All right, let's take a look now about the scales that we will use to help us calculate the appropriate rate and accuracy. So here is the general grading scale that you're going to use when you are assessing alertness to punctuation and expression. We are, of course, shooting for this 3 grade level. 4 would be above grade level, and then you can see 1 and 2 there as well. Now, for the fluency and accuracy score, this chart that you see, there are 2 charts that you see, actually come from M-Class. So these are not really very subjective. They're actually quite scripted. And it's the same ones we use, they use nationally, actually, and on the M-Class exam. So it's very important that we follow that. So your student is going to read to you out loud for 1 minute. You are going to calculate the number of words read correctly within 1 minute. That's very important, words per minute. Let's say that child read 50 words in a minute. You're going to choose whether you are BOY, MOY, or EOY. So again, beginning of year, middle, and end. So let's say I gave this assessment in December. That's going to be middle of the year. The child read 50 correct words in a minute. So that falls in this band right here. So I would give the child a 3 for fluency. And actually on the rubric it says rate, so the rate at which they read. Using that same 50, I'm going to come over here to the accuracy chart. I'm going to stay with MOY because we tested perhaps in December. And I know that the student read 50 words correct. So for fluency, accuracy, we calculate a percentage of words read correctly out of total words. So if 50 words were read correctly, but 60 words were read total, I would do a division problem of 50 divided by 60, and that's going to give me 83%. So this child is reading 83% accurately. So I will come over to my chart, and I see that 83% is here in yellow. So I would give the child a 3, which is grade level for fluency, and a 2, which is approaching grade level for fluency accuracy. Okay, so now that I've calculated the scores, let's come over here and pretend that I'm doing this for a student. So I have student Joe, and I just calculated the rate for Joe, and I know that he got a 3, and the accuracy was a 2. Those are the 2 scores. These 2 columns are the ones that I use calculations for. The first 2 columns are the ones that I use my observations as a teacher to help me get a score for. So after listening to Joe, I have decided that Joe has amazing expression. He's quite a ham. And so he's going to have a 4 for expression. And his alertness and punctuation is spot on, so he's going to have a 4 for that as well. Now, when I asked some comprehension questions, he could respond appropriately, showing that he had comprehended, but he did have some problems with word recognition, so I'm going to give that a no. Remember that those 2 columns do not go into the overall score. So now it's time for me to put into ClassReach, and as you recall, this is going to be out of 12 points because we're shooting for the grade level standard, and that's a scale of 3. So 3 times 4 is 12. All right, so now I add it up. Joe got 13. A 13 out of 12. And so that is the score that I would enter into ClassReach. Now, it could be that in the comments area, I want to provide a little bit of information for the parent, And so, because this is going to look like a really, really great score, and it is, but I might say to the parent, Joe reads so expressively, which is why this score was so high, but he does need to work on accuracy. And I could even say he was 83% accurate, and I'd like to see that maybe at an 86 by the next time we test. And you could say something like that in the comments area, just so parents have a good understanding that while this score over here looks really stellar, we do want to see this score go up. All right, now let's turn our eyes to what the passages actually look like. So you might be using a U-fly passage. And if you use a U-fly passage, I'm going to show you what they look like. This is the interface that you would give the student. So the student would have this sitting in front of them. And this is what the teacher would see. So the teacher, as you can tell, has a word count going over here. Okay, that tells you how many words on each line. And it has this nice little scoring area down here. And you will use this page, the teacher would use this page to actually mark the responses from the student. And we're going to go over that in just a minute. If you are using a passage that is not from UFly or is not just a normal reading fluency passage, maybe you're using an M-Class one, this one right here comes from M-Class, you're welcome to use whatever passages that you might want, but you'll notice there's no word count on the side. So you'll have to prep ahead of time and you'll have to count the words, and it'd be helpful if you just, make your own notes and, put whatever the words on the side, and then maybe give yourself some blanks down here so you can write total words read, number of correct, and you can get that calculation. But you're welcome to use any passage. You could even use a BJU reading passage or the M-Class passages. I'm just going to show you on the U-Fly ones because it's a little bit easier to see. Now, one thing that's really cool about using the U-Fly is there are reminders at the top. Okay, so you can see set a timer for 1 minute. If the student pauses for 3 seconds, give them the word and mark it as an error. That's very important because that's consistent, again, with the M-Class assessment because it's just like that. When a minute is up, note the last word the student read with a bracket or a line, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So the important thing you need to remember here is that you do need to have a timer going for 1 minute. You will give the student their passage and you will tell them to begin. Now, if we were completing a full-on reading record, which is not technically what we're doing, we're going to complete this just for the sake of our HLA assessment. But if you have seen other videos about running records or you are familiar with it yourself, you know that there is a ton of information that you can put on this page that will help both you and the co-teacher. You could mark words omitted. You could mark words that were substituted. You could mark words that were inserted. And all of those things are wonderful and give great data. But for the purpose of the HLA assessment, all we need to know are the number of words read in 1 minute and the accuracy. So we're going to tell the student to begin. We're going to start our timer and they're going to start reading. And when 1 minute is up, if they get all the way to the end, we would mark the bracket at the end. But let's say the child stops here, okay, at the end of a minute. That's how I'm going to mark that. So I know that the total words read is 63, total words read. Now, while the child was reading, the child missed a couple of words, and I'm going to be marking those. So the child missed this word, missed this word. This word, actually, the child just stopped and paused and didn't say it, and so 3 seconds went by, so I gave the child the word buds, and the child missed this word. Okay, so at the end of a minute, I see that the child has missed 3 words, and I'm going to write 3 words here. Total words correct was 60. Okay, so that's the number I'm going to need to remember, 60 words correct within 1 minute. I'm going to use that and go back to that rubric and that grid to help me know what to put in on the rubric. Again, you are welcome to mark more things here, but the only things that you must mark for the purposes of the HLA assessment is the number of words. So again, you want to put where they stopped with the bracket and words correct. So any words that were incorrect, you're going to mark like that. If you want, like, let's say the word plant at the end of line 1, they first got it wrong, but then they got it right. You could do the self-correct like that just to remind yourself. Just don't count that in the words wrong if, in fact, they did self-correct it. So again, only the correct and incorrect words and how many they read within 1 minute. So I'm remembering this word, 60 words correct in a minute. And all right, so remembering that the score was 60, I'm going to come over here to the oral reading fluency where it says words read correctly, words per minute, and I'm looking for 60. Now, for purposes of this activity, we're pretending that we are in MOI. So 60 would be right here. So this child's score for the rate is going to be a 4. So that's what I'm going to enter on the rubric, and we'll see that in just a second. Now, for oral reading accuracy, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a calculation. So for this one, I know that the child read 60 words that were correct out of 63. So it's like I'm wanting to have a percentage of the total words that were read correctly. So when I do that math, I see that that's going to be a 95. Okay, a 95%. So then I will take that percent, that accuracy percent, and I'll come over here to my chart. And again, I see for MOI that is going to be a 3. Again, remembering that there's no 4 in this category. That's as high as they can get, and that is actually pretty far above grade level. So the child would have a 3 on that one. So I'm going to take those two numbers, a 4 for the rate and a 3 for accuracy. And I'm going to come over to my rubric, and I'm going to put Susie's name. The rate would be a 4, and the accuracy would be a 3. So those are the calculation categories. The other ones, I'm just listening as the child reads. And as they were reading, I felt like Susie was right on grade level with where she should be for her expression. And her alertness to punctuation was really quite stellar. She did a great job with that. So I'm going to have a 4 for that. So those are just my general observations. The categories of rate and accuracy are calculated. And then these final two, they're just yes, no's, and they're just for good information. So when I asked Susie a comprehension question, she could answer it pretty well. And so I gave her a yes for that. She could not, however, use some of the context to identify one of the words I asked her for, so I'll just give a no for that. All right, so it's time to put that into class reach now. And so I am going to take that out of 12 points. And the score that this child received was a 14. So Susie is doing great. She's really doing great. I might provide in the notes area to the family in the comments area because they're going to see this and think that Susie's flawless, which she is doing great. But I might just provide some comments and say, hey, if I'm looking for Susie to improve in one area, I'm really looking for her to improve in that expression. See if that's something you guys can work on at home. And that way it gives them an idea of something they can do moving forward. And that is all there is to it.